an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The Magicians, Season 3, Episode 13. Will you play with me? In this episode, Quentin decides he's going to give it all up and stay in this castle for the sake of everyone. And everyone says, "I don't think so, Quentin." And then they shoot someone, and everything just goes to hell, and I don't know what's happening. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. First of all, I want to thank Ashley for commissioning this episode. Thank you very much, Ashley. This is the first episode in like 3 weeks. It feels like ages. And I see Hugabug said the same thing, because there was a minute there where I was doing like 3 of these a week and they were very close together. And I watched this episode back then because I was like, oh yeah, doubtless the next episode will be very soon. And I didn't check the date. I just saw that it was not a voyeur and that I was safe. And then I went and checked once I had finished watching it. And I was like, oh, it's like practically Valentine's Day by the time I cover this. So yeah, this episode is bonkers. I am not sure how I feel about it, to be honest, in terms of like whether I liked it or not. There are parts of it that I really like. But there are parts of it that feel really abrupt. Like they just kind of rushed things a little bit. And I can't decide if I just feel that way. Like, I can't decide if that's me or not. So I'd be interested in seeing how some of y'all felt about this. But we get another opening with the description of the knight who is shackled by the witch, the opening of this like 7 keys thing. He could not escape, but his daughter, now every bit the knight that her father was and more so, never gave up. She fought monsters, real and imagined, without as well as within. She had won all 7 keys, and now she set sail for the castle at the end of the world. And they interrupt, and they're just like, oh my God, can you please just tell us what's happening? I was a little sad because I really liked that illustration. Honestly, the illustrations are really, really beautiful. She faces the door of the castle. In the door, there were 7 keyholes. The door swallowed the keys whole and slowly opened. Up ahead, she saw her father, bound by 7 chains. "Father," she cried, "I'm here to save you." She placed the keys into the locks, and when she turned the 7th, and again, Eliot says, "I thought the door swallowed the keys." And Quentin says, "Yeah, no, it did, but then she has them again?" And Eliot's like, what the hell is going on here? And Quentin says, oh, maybe that's a paradox, which I'm just like, what, are we supposed to like be jumping back and forth in time as well to do this? Like, there is a lot happening here. So yeah, they don't have a real good idea of how this is supposed to work in summary. And there is just, I still don't feel like I totally understood what happened when they get to the castle. But, it's like part of it I get, a big part of it. But there's the overall like logistics, again, that I don't. I will say, and I should have mentioned this up top. So well, you know what? I won't mention this up top. I'll get into it. Okay. So they're talking at this point about the library and the fact that they are like, even if they do this, the library is going to want to jump in and siphon off all of the magic power anyway. And they're in the middle of this conversation about it when Julia hears somebody calling to the Lady of the Tree. And she stands up and is looking around trying to figure out where this voice is coming from. And all of a sudden there's this yellow light and this woman who calls herself Iris, a messenger goddess, is here to talk to her and says that it's a pleasure to finally meet her. I have to be honest, guys, that ever since we have dealt with fucking Reynard and his yellow eyes, anytime that there is a god with yellow light around them, I just assume that shit is no good. And I'm realizing now that the yellow is not meant to be an inherently negative thing. Yellow is kind of just meant to represent the gods as a whole in general. But when I saw this bitch, I did not trust her. And it turns out she's fine. Like, it seems like she is who she says she is. But I was waiting for the other shoe to drop with her for a minute. And she's basically here to tell Julia that she is a goddess now. That people are calling her the Lady of the Tree because of the trees that she brought back in Fillory as an act of penance, which they think makes it a pretty good moniker for her, actually. And Julia is like, what are you talking about that I'm a goddess now? And she says, you fulfilled the task Our Lady Underground gave you to grow the spark. And now you are the flame. And this means that she is a full-on goddess, which means that she can basically like leave the mortal plane and go on to work with other human beings with like, not even other human beings, work on larger, more, quote, important, big picture problems rather than worrying about little details like bringing magic back to humanity. Honestly, this is a weird thing of like, I don't understand why them bringing magic back isn't considered more of a big picture thing, unless this was all meant to be a distraction and a bit of a test, which maybe that's what it is, like to see if she really deserves it. Is she willing to sacrifice of herself? But I don't really feel like the gods have the best rep or history of being willing to sacrifice themselves. It's kind of part of what makes Prometheus so like such an outlier. So I feel like I'm just kind of grasping at straws with that one, and that's likely not it. Yama says, you called it when you said she was going to become a god. I did not see that coming. Yama, that's so funny you say that, because I was like, did I ever think that this was going to happen? And I couldn't remember. But like you have to do good to become a god. I feel like gods couldn't care less about doing good. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing here is like, if it's just about a test from Our Lady Underground, that may be the test, because Our Lady Underground seems a little bit more concerned with doing good than average. However, Our Lady Underground also allowed her garbage pail son to run around on Earth murdering and raping innocent women. So Our Lady Underground can claim to be on the side of good all she wants, but I'm never, ever, ever, ever really going to believe that. I'm just saying. Hugabug says, no, I think it's just that the gods know magic will eventually come back with time, but since they're immortals, it's just a blip to them. Yeah, I guess you're right. I think that they do mention that. So yeah, Julia is essentially being told to like focus on, again, the big picture. They're talking about like creating whole new worlds, which she can kind of oversee, like she's doing a Sims. I have to be honest. If I were turned into a goddess somehow, but then I was essentially divorced from my own everyday life and told to just like create new worlds and focus on that sort of thing, I would be highly irritated. Like, what's the point of this all if I don't get to help people that I love and have a relationship to? And why am I going to create new worlds when the world I'm coming from is a pure garbage fire? I'm not interested in creating a new garbage fire, which is what would happen. I mean, come on. I would like to fix the problem. This is the argument. I mean, I was just covering parable of the talents. And there's a whole thing in there about this girl having this idea that the destiny of humanity is to eventually move into space and create new civilizations, places other than Earth. And I just can't support that. I understand practically that might be like a good option for humanity, but I'm just like, we fucked our own planet up so bad that it's dying, or at least changing so much that there will be a point in which most of the kinds of life that now exist on it may not. And we think that we should just get to leave? Like, you know, this is like trashing the home that you live in. And rather than just cleaning it up and continuing to live in it, you light it on fire and buy a new house and just start trashing that too. You haven't learned anything. You haven't earned the right to choose a new home. There's nothing about that is responsible. So this whole like thing about like, oh yeah, well just, we have to, they can take that quest from here and your concerns are greater. Your duty to them is over and it's time for you to create new worlds. Put down that pain. I'm just like, I mean, that's not how it works though. She used to be a human. And while she is experiencing new things that are shifting her perception and understanding, just saying let go of all that pain, that's not how that works, kiddos. Like, what? So she goes and tells Q, and he is kind of adorable about it. This is one of the more likable moments for him. I feel like he has really undergone a shift. Like, it's almost like the show writers realized, oh, we just can't have him keep being like this. Like, everybody hates this guy. And he asks if he should bow. And he says it has been kind of difficult to ignore the nuclear power plant radiating off you for the last couple of weeks, which I'd never thought about the fact that they can perceive magic. Like, that is not something that they have to access. It's in the air. The moment that they were in that like little pocket dimension, they could sense magic was back. When Q and I was about to call him Quill. When Q and Eliot go back in time in Fillory, they immediately can sense that there's magic and they think that it's fixed, but then they realize they've gone back in time. So I didn't really think about that, but the fact that they're all sitting around Julia and none of them have magic, but they can feel her basically like low-key vibrating with it must be pretty tough, you know? Like, that's just being unable to like eat gluten and watching somebody break open a fresh loaf of bread that just came out of the oven with the steam rising up and putting like soft butter melting into it. And you're just sitting there like, and you just can't have any. Like, really, that's torture. So she says something about how she really wanted to finish this together. And he says, I would have liked that too, but let's be honest, you deserve this. And she says, but why me? And he basically is like, you've been through a lot of shit and I really care about you. And I'm just happy to see that this is working out. Honestly, that's all I need. And I was like, that is a good answer, sir. Nicely done. But yeah, the affection between the two of them in this moment is really, really sweet. I was more moved by the two of them than I thought I would be. And Julia, before she says goodbye, lifts her hands and imbues Q with just enough magic to be able to perform one, pretty baller spell. It's not going to be like, enough to keep doing a bunch of things, but it will be enough if something serious happens and he really just needs magic for a sec. That will be able to do it, which I thought was dope and a really smart idea. I wish that she had done that for everybody in the crew. But, what can you do? You kind of need for the plot for it to just be the one. So she says goodbye and she disappears. And you can see Quentin's just a little bit heartbroken about it. Like, he's happy for her, and I don't think he was lying. But, like, yeah, I mean, how do you not feel a way when your friend ascends to godhood and leaves you all behind like shit, you know? So then we jump ahead to Quentin and Josh sitting up on this pool table. The couch is like up on the pool table, and the table is up there, and Q is up there as well. And I was like, what exactly are they doing here? But it was just a very confusing moment that they're talking about the picture that they're looking at and trying to figure out the drafting tools for architects and stuff. And I was so distracted throughout this conversation that I did not understand why things were set up in this room the way that they were. I just kept on focusing on that. But I guess that is there like plans on the floor that they're looking at and trying to stay up off of? Because I don't feel like we ever get an explanation for why that's all set up this way. And I watched and tried to like see, and I couldn't tell. So yeah, they're trying to figure out who they can go to for information on how this castle is set up. And it's really like they wind up getting to the point where they, like, all of them have been talking about, first of all, how Julia has become a goddess. Margot really doesn't feel like that's totally fair, wants to know kind of why her. Like, I know she's been through some shit, but damn. And this is when Alice brings up Calypso, the witch that imprisoned Odysseus. And they are realizing that she was a nymph. She's not a god, but she was like a really powerful creature who managed to lock him up for 7 years. And I have to say that there's a little running joke in this scene that I really, really love, which is everybody is trying to pronounce the name of this island that he was apparently locked up in, Ogygia, but Alice keeps chiming in under her breath with the correct pronunciation. Moments like that where I really love Alice. Like, she knows how to say it right, and she's not going to not say it. But also, she just doesn't want to, like, make a big deal out of it. So she's just going to say it under her breath, but also she's not going to not say it. You know what I'm saying? And I just found that to be really funny how that kept on coming up. So they are figuring out the way that they can actually get to Calypso, and they find out that she works in some, they go through a bunch of like amazing results on their Google search for Calypso. But Josh is the one who realizes that they are the ones who created Candy Collider, which is obviously the show's version of Candy Crush, which is this super addicting phone game. I never have played Candy Crush. No, not true. I did play it one time, and I found it really, really obnoxious. I can imagine getting addicted to it initially, that it probably was like crack. But when you play it now, there are so many pop-ups and so many like, buy these gems, buy these coins. I couldn't deal with it. I hate that. I totally appreciate that games like that need to be able to be funded by somebody, so they have to charge for the certain things, and that's fine. But there comes a point where a game is like unplayable, you know? But yeah, he is realizing that the CEO is a woman named Callie, and that she is the one that they are all looking for. So they go to see her, and she is not super receptive to their whole assertion here. She's like, I promised Prometheus that I would help you out because because I would never break my word to him, I will. But I got to admit that I kind of hate all of you. I hate this quest. And Prometheus is dead because all of you all are garbage. So I'm just going to keep that grudge, and I'm going to need you to just be understanding of the fact that I hate you. And also, he loved you, but I hate you. So fuck yourselves. But also, here's my help. And honestly, I felt that. Like, that seemed real to me. So she tells them that the castle was like the greatest commission of her entire career. And we have some flashbacks to her creating the blueprints for it. And it's really funny because the blueprints have this very like modern sort of look, but she and Prometheus are like in costume in this like, you know, the Roman toga sort of vibe. And it was just sort of a funny, like anytime they decide to do flashbacks like this, where people are in period dress, it's always a little awkward. Like there are times when it can sort of work, but it's not usual. I find myself being a little bit more like giggly about them than otherwise. But yeah, we're just meant to be like, to see how much her and Prometheus were in love with each other and cared about each other and the help that he gave her. And Margot says something about the person that is locked up in the tower and how they have like pledged themselves to be a slave. Or she says, you made her be a slave. And Calypso's like, she's there of her own free will, as was her father, who offered himself as bait, really. A sort of damsel in distress for his daughter to save. I gave them each an opportunity to perform a sacred task to keep the world safe. I assure you, she can leave if she wishes, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The quest has taught you that sacrifice is a part of everything. And when she says that, she looks at Quentin. And honestly, I thought when she said that to him, she was talking about him letting his father, like, get cancer again. But Quentin seems to, like, think that she's pointing towards another sacrifice. Like, he thinks that she's kind of hinting to him, I think, that he is going to have to sacrifice again. That didn't really occur to me. I'm fine with that interpretation, but I really thought she was referencing something that had already happened. And she says, I had designed a perfect place full of monsters where no one wants to look. He promised he would make his quest difficult so no quester could get anywhere near my prison who couldn't ensure that it remained secure. And then we get the flashback to him channeling all of his power into these keys so that he basically, as I think Margot says, Horcruxed himself. And this wound up killing him because he didn't leave anything else left in his own body. He just put all of himself into these keys and then evidently died. I do want to ask, the dude who plays Prometheus, this actor, looks so familiar. And I don't know if any of you, IMDb'd who he is. I cannot place him. And his face is not totally in focus for very long in any of these scenes. So I might be misunderstanding, but there's something about him that looks super familiar. So yeah, she is talking about all of the different keys. And Quentin pulls one out and she kind of holds it as if she can sense the fragment of his soul in it. Like there's a little bit of his echo there still. And Josh just straight up is like, so can you tell us where your prison is and how to get in? And they all sort of like react to him asking this as if it's definitely not going to be that easy. But then Calypso is immediately like, yeah, no, that's my whole job is to like tell you all that, which I was just like, oh, that is not what I expected. Okay, well, shit, let's go. So yeah, guess what? It is the upside down of Fillory. What? This is right underneath. There is like a mirror image of Castle White Spire. And it is based on Black Spire, which they all thought that that had been destroyed, but really it had been flipped over to make room for the good place. Basically, we got the bad place, we got the good place. So they all thought that it was gone, but it's still there. It's just underneath, which is bonkers, and I love it. And she just says, "Good luck with your quest." And they're like, "How do we get in? What about the key paradox?" And she says, "Everything I put that girl through, I did to prepare her for what's locked inside. You'll find your way in. You'll figure it out. But there's one thing that you just have to keep in mind. The thing in there cannot fucking get out. Do not let it escape." Spoilers. It escapes. You fucking idiots. Ah, God. Let's see. Yama says, "I felt that rush because it's the finale." Yeah, I just this all being just handed to them. On the one hand, like I said, the fact that they just ask a question and just straight up get an answer, I am here for it because that never happens. On the other hand, I wouldn't have minded if this would have occurred with something that was a little bit less huge. You know, being just told where the castle is, being just told the ways that this all works is a pretty big thing to make an exception and have them just be handed the information. So in that respect, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we're just doing this episode. Because I'll be honest, y'all, watching this, I didn't even realize that this was the season finale, which is what happened last time too. I forget how short the seasons for this show is. And I was thinking that there were 18 episodes or something. So when we get the information about where the castle is and everything, the idea that they were going to head there within the same episode that we got the information didn't even enter my head. I thought that there was going to be the rest of the episode would be dealing with other getting prepared to go, figuring out what's going on with Julia and becoming a goddess and all of that adventure. I never suspected that we were just going to resolve this shit right away. And I mean, it's not resolved, but you know what I'm saying. We have a brief thing with Fen, who is the acting High King in Fillory. I love all of this so much, and I love that they are respecting her as much as really they can. I mean, Tick is not given to being sincere in the way that he talks to people, but I really enjoy what a good time she seems to be having. And she says, "Bring the tax collector's latest expense reports. I would like to double check them." And then she says, "Sorry." And they say, "Of course." And I was like, oh, she said sorry. She said, "Sorry, sweetie, don't do that. This is what we do." And then here comes the fucking fairy queen who says, "You need to stop apologizing. This power is yours. You need to take ownership of what you're doing." And I was like, she's giving her advice on how to make it as a CEO. Y'all, I am so here for this. Can I just say, even now, I have built Unspoiled. It's mine. I did that. My co-hosts are key. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be I don't even need them. But all of the web work and the social media stuff and the editing of episodes is all me. And I still have moments of being "Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. Oh, God, shit. Oh, man, is that a hard thing to unlearn? Fen, sweetie, I get it. And she's not even the one who she married into this and now has power because they happen to not be there. So I deeply understand why she's kind of reticent to take that power and be and feel that she should be treated seriously. But I was just so here for the fucking fairy queen being "Bitch, stop it. No more exclamation points after you tell someone to do something in an email. No more emojis to soften the way that this sounds. Tell them what to do. And I was like, ugh, gotta internalize that shit. So then she tells Fen, somebody is hunting her people again. And 6 people have been found, or 6 fairies have disappeared in the last 3 days, I think she says. And that they found something in the woods that is a piece of night vision equipment for humans to use. And she's like, yeah, somebody is here hunting us. And I was like, this fucking bitch, Irene. I'm going to say it. Irene is the best villain that this show has had, to be honest. I hate her so much. I just hate her so much. Oh, God. She is just an embodiment of a very real, relatable evil in the kind of way that Umbridge was versus Voldemort. When we've got evils that are out here just pulling people's eyes out and drawing smiley faces with their blood, you're just like, yeah, this is not an evil that I really understand. I know it's out there. I know that there are people who exist like this and who have existed like this. And I know that that is in itself a terrifying prospect, but it's not something that I really get. And then there's Irene, who is a fucking capitalist, selfish slaver. And she is just, she just embodies so much of what I hate. So, yeah, I am feeling a way about fucking Irene. Okay, so then we get this scene with Julia and the other the other goddess, where they're in the woods that has it's rain, but it's glitter rain, and they're sitting with their little parasols and this pot of tea. This is one of those moments where I'm like, I understand the what's the word I want? I understand the impulse to make this place feel a little bit disconnected from a human being's ideal scenario, where they're out in the woods in a sort of natural setting, but there's also bits and bobs of elements of comfort. But it didn't really do it for me, this whole setting. It was a little bit I was just distracted by how strange it was versus feeling impressed by it. I don't know. But I pretty much talked about Julia. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to skip over the scenes involving her until we get to the end where she decides to sacrifice her magic again. They are talking about how they're going to actually get to the Castle Blackspire. And he is saying, Penny is saying that he could just blip them all in. But rightfully, Margot is like, dude, we don't know what you're blipping into. And if something happens to you, we already lost a Penny. We don't need to be doing this all over again. And as Quentin is walking away, there's this is part of where things started to get really confusing to me. Because he's talking to them about how to get in. And he says, what is it that he says before he gets up and leaves? I think he just goes to sleep. Does he? Is that just, but he doesn't tell them that's what he's doing. Or is he just projecting his brain into her dream? I don't really understand how he got this idea. There's not a series of thoughts that I could piece together about how he figured out that he could do this. And when we see him sitting there rubbing his hands over his face, he's not actually asleep. He says that he's in her head and explains this, but I don't understand how he's achieving this without magic, or how, I feel or no, he has the magic. I guess, is he using Julia's magic to accomplish this? it's just such an abrupt thing because even though he has the magic, this doesn't feel exactly like an emergency, like what she had suggested for him to use it for. This part felt really sudden and super confusing to me. But yeah, he's talking to her. Her name is Aura. And he says that he needs her help. And she says, you're here about the fountain and the back door to get magic back. And she says that she can't help. And that all of the guards are gone. He's the only one left. And that, they've all obviously been killed off. She says, I can't risk the security of my charge. And he says, I get that. I have something to offer you too. And then we cut back to him explaining everything to everyone. I incepted the night in the castle. It's just so sudden, guys. I just really wanted there to be more of a, he's not even asleep. How? Did we know this was something that he could even do? I don't know. It's just it's just a weird moment that's just super rushed for me. So yeah, he says, when we were told that she can, leave whenever she wants, I figured that she knew different ways in and out and that she could let us in. So we have to get in, turn the key, and get out fast. And they ask about the monster, and he says that Aura will take care of it, and I will stay in the castle. It's a fair deal. She's been there for centuries. She's tired. I'm strong enough, thanks to the quest. So I'm the new jailer. And both Alice and Eliot protest a great deal about this. And he's basically like, listen, all of us have to sacrifice something. Eliot, no offense, but you became king of Fillory and agreed to never come back to this world again. Now you can, granted, but you agreed to do that with the understanding that you never would, and you didn't know that things would change. I am doing what I need to do. Somebody has to step up. And this is when Margot is like, how about we just kill the fucking monster with the god-killing bullet? To which I was like, why do you guys think this bullet is going to work? It doesn't make any sense. We had actual gods lock this thing up. If they could have killed it, if the power of a god is all it takes to kill the thing, they would have done that. Duh. But they didn't / couldn't. So ipso facto, that bullet is not a sure thing. But they just take it for granted that this bullet will do the job. They don't have any reason to think that's true. And it is so annoying to me that they just trust that that's going to work. You guys, have you learned nothing? You don't know what this shit does. You don't know half the shit about this world. You just found out about this fucking tower being right under Fillory, under your fucking noses this whole time. And you're trying to act like you have the solutions to shit. Listen to the thing that Calypso, who has been put here for your explicit benefit, told you to do. She gave you one piece of advice. That's all she did, was just tell you, don't fuck with this thing. It's an ancient evil of magnitude that you do not understand. Leave it alone. That's the one thing that she asked of you. And y'all just could not just... I am disgusted. So anyway, yeah, Margot presents this. Eliot backs it up. And Quentin is like, dude, guys, no. That is too clever. We can't get around the rules here. This is how this works. We need to take it seriously as it is. And for once, I was totally on Quentin's side here. Quentin understands the way that this shit is supposed to work. This is not fairy magic. This isn't shit that you need to find a loophole or figure out the weakness in their wording. You are dealing with gods and legends here. There's a way things go. And it's like the exact thing that is in so many Greek myths. Trying to fight fate is what causes that fate to occur. Just do what you're fucking told and knock it off. Yeah, it sucks to have to sacrifice a person, but he is willing to do that. Just as you, Eliot, were willing to do that, and y'all found a way to get him out of it, you'll find a way to get him out of this. But they just can't. They just can't accept it. Oh my God. So, the only way to make sure it doesn't escape is to do it the hard way. Thank you. But no, nobody is accepting that. And they decide to pack the fucking gun and bullet anyway against his wishes, and I am so irritated. Alice says she doesn't like it, and Quentin's like, yeah, fucking duh. No, you shouldn't like it. I also don't like it. What are you going to do? So then we have the capture of Fen, who is disguised as a fairy. And Irene and her partner grip her up thinking that they know what they've got. And it turns out that they don't. And she says, you will cease at once because they are now full citizens of Fillory. And they try and be like, yada, yada, yada. Ah, I'm so impressed. Whatever. And she has her guards come out and says that she's going to put them in the dungeon. But this guy is a traveler. So he says that he can blip out of there, no big deal. By the way, when I say this guy, I'm talking about the fucking librarian, which was the first clue that shit was really going to go left in that regard. But I did not put it together. I will admit that. I didn't think through the fact that apparently Irene is still working on behalf of the library. I thought Irene was getting just some help of somebody who was interested in getting more of the drug, but I didn't think of this as a sanctioned thing. And I should have, because they have been sanctioning it from the beginning. What makes me think that they're suddenly not going to do that? But I just, like I said, didn't put it together. I was too focused on what was going on here. In terms of Fen's power play, So she says that she has something that they will need back at the castle. And we have this deal that gets made with the Fairy Queen. She basically is aware that the fact that she broke the agreement of her ancestors, that means that she has to do something incredibly drastic in order to get people to trust the word of fairies again. She needs to fix their reputation. So she offers herself up as a sacrifice. I will be honest. I hated this. And by that, I do not mean the writing. I mean, this makes total sense. The Fairy Queen is a baller. I like her, and I never expected to like her. She's just really putting her money where her mouth is in terms of rulership. Admirable, boss bitch, all that. But I hate the fact that she is fucking dead. I hate it. Who's going to be the new Fairy Queen? I really would like to know that. And she sacrifices herself in this scene in which, even though she gets murdered, she still gets the last word and basically tells Irene, bitch, you done fucked up. I know you think you're getting the good out of this deal, which is just precious, but you are really going to regret this one. So enjoy yourself while you can, but also sleep with one eye open and watch your back, because we are going to get you. Somebody is going to get you. I'm here for this. This whole thing was just very well done. So then we have this scene, and guys, okay, so Alice goes to Dean Fogg and she says, I need a favor. I have this fairy dust. I know it's wrong, but I'm holding on to it because I need something. She says, I hear you have an experimental potion that not only wipes your memory, but creates a whole new persona. And he says, I do, but what is it? And she says, I'll always be tempted once I can feel it everywhere again. And unless I have no memory. And I guess what she's saying is just, I will always be tempted to do hateful, destructive, violent shit because that is just part of me now because of my time as a Niffin. And I need to get my brain wiped so that I don't have this temptation to return to that. Which, like, that's the thing, is that's part of, like, growing as a person, is that you always will have temptation, and your growth depends on that temptation existing and you continuing to not cave to it. That's how you become a better human being. Wiping your memory so that the temptation no longer presents a challenge is so literally the easiest way out I can think of that it's startling. And she is just... she thinks she is being, like, self-sacrificing for the sake of everyone else's safety, I guess. I'm not buying it, Alice. You're being selfish and a coward, to be totally honest. Get over it. She says, I want to live my life, not how my parents raised me to think, or what you taught me, or what the library wants me to do. And I'm like, you can still do that. That doesn't... none of this is predicated on losing your memory. And yeah, I did not buy this at all. I didn't like this, just didn't for me make sense with her character very much, really. I felt like they just needed a reason for there to be this, like, memory potion. And other than that, it didn't really, I just didn't buy it, you know? They just wanted us to have this MacGuffin to be used in some way. But yeah, he says, once you've been, and he uses the sniffing motion, use this. And I think he says, give it about a day for the reboot. And yeah, give it about a full day for everything to get rebooted. After that, you are on your own. And I'm just like, all right. I did not for a moment think that she was going to use this on herself. I knew that some shit was going to go very, very left with it. I just didn't think it was going to go left the way that it does. So then we see Dean Fogg go to the head librarian and tell her, we need to talk about our arrangement. So apparently they are somehow in cahoots. And I also did not care for this development very much at all. So we see the crew, and they are using the flying ship to get to where they're going. They're all on it. I can't remember the name of this ship. Anybody wants to help me out? And we see Alice and Quentin talking about this whole plan that she has. He asks her if she has told anybody else that she's going to do this. And she says that she hasn't, and that she doesn't want him to say anything. But he's the only person that she really wanted to know that this was coming. And that way he would understand what was happening. Which I understand, but I do think, like, yeah. She says that you're the one that I love, Q. You're the one. And it's obviously the one thing that he's been wishing she would fucking say to him, but it's too late and everything's ruined now. And she says, and the only thing I will regret is not remembering that. And he says, well, I'll remember for the both of us. And it's honestly, like, again, a pretty good moment. Like, I like the two of them with this little, like, understanding going on between them, because they're both agreeing to let go of things. And I really needed that. I do. I just need them to just, oh God, guys, just move on. Let's see. Moonjack. Thank you, Hugabug. So they get to the castle. It's pretty cool looking, honestly. And it looks exactly like White Spire, except, like if this is where Darth Vader lived. And we have Ona. Is that her name again? She is opening the weird side door in order to let them in. She has to like press on these cubes to allow them in. And they come in with their 7 keys, allegedly ready to do what they said that they were going to do, even though they are pretty much all but Quentin straight up lying to her. Because I feel like Alice also kind of knows that Margot and Eliot are planning something else. I don't know if that's true, but I just feel like Alice is just always doing her own thing and is aware of more than I assumed. She goes off on her own looking highly suspicious, and I had no idea what the fuck it was that she was doing. Meanwhile, Ona is leading Quentin down these hallways of this castle in order to show him the creature that he is supposed to be guarding. And, it's, she's talking about it like it's a child, basically, which is really the vibe that you get when you actually do meet it. She says that he gets bored and he always wants somebody to play with him, and she has to coddle him and keep him happy. Otherwise, he gets really destructive. And, the guards that had all been there are all dead. So apparently what she's doing is working because she's still alive, but it's a lot of work. So the rest of the team is over by this, the fountain where they're supposed to be starting magic up again. And the thing comes out. I can't remember who it looks like, if it's anybody in particular. He just looks like a spoiled little princeling, really. And Quentin decides to sort of distract it by pulling out a deck of cards and basically being like, hey, I'll entertain you by playing this game with you. And when it comes out, Eliot pulls his gun and shoots it, and this gold light is coming up out of it, and it occupies, obviously, Ona. I guess I'm looking at Alice's face after they take this shot, and I guess Alice didn't know that they were going to do this. But yeah, they have their backs turned, so they don't see this light take over Ona. They just turn and Ona is gone. And Eliot says something like, anyway, it's done. And I'm like, dude, why do you think that though? This light, you saw the light. You saw her standing there, and now you see that she's gone. There is no reason to interpret this way. Oh my God, you guys, fine. So now it's time for all of them to turn on the fountain, and here comes Alice, and she takes all of the keys out of everyone's hands and puts them down and destroys them all and tells them that human beings cannot be trusted with magic. And this is part of what the I can't remember anything is going to be about. It's supposed to be she wants to be able to rid the world of magic or access to it and not remember that she did this. And when she tells Quentin about what she's going to do earlier, evidently she did not include this part of it. Shocker. She has her own agenda. Who knew? I am so irritated by this. She says, you talked me out of working for the library. I realize there's no good side. Magic just makes people different shades of bad, selfish, and irresponsible. We can't handle it. Guys, I can't be alone in this, right? This is nonsense. This came out of nowhere. This feels totally unearned. I'm not buying it at all. I'm not buying it. This doesn't make any sense. They just needed somebody to suddenly pop up and be treacherous, and they decided to have it be Alice. And her blaming magic is just so illogical. Like, it's just different shades of bad. Welcome to fucking life, lady. This is what... You don't think that taking magic away will result in different shades of bad existing amongst everybody who doesn't even have magic? There is no reason to think that magic is the root of the problem. What are you talking about? And Alice is smart. She would know that. It doesn't make any fucking sense. I hated this twist of, like, there are a lot of things in this episode that I thought were clever or that I liked, but this was really as the main thing. I was just like, oh, come on. She says, we are wrong, and it stops now, and she destroys the keys, and they're all standing, and I'm just like, Alice, you couldn't have done this before they wound up in the fucking tower with all of the, like, evil? You could have just destroyed the keys and then taken that potion and been done with it. But you decided to do this here, now, when everybody and the world is at their most vulnerable. And the whole thing, it doesn't make sense. And she just, like, runs away after using her magic to, like, incapacitate them all. She just runs off into the castle. Like, this is the stupidest plan. This doesn't make any sense. She's way too smart to, like, execute it this way. And she's just, like, blindly trying to find her way around and inevitably gets gripped up by Margot after running into Ona, who is possessed by this thing. It is so fucking poorly thought. It doesn't make any sense. She could have done this at any time, but no. So meanwhile, Julia senses that some shit is going on, and she decides to drop it with the, like, other goddess shit, and she comes back to the quest and creates the keys by sacrificing the magic from herself. And it is honestly a pretty awesome, like, dramatic scene. You can see her really, like, getting fucked up as she's doing it. But I appreciated that the goddess thing was not going to continue. I wasn't that mad at it. And if they had kept on with that line of plot, I wouldn't have been, like, annoyed. But there really is just so much to be done with that I'm going to find interesting now that she's, like, of a wholly different caliber than everyone else. So for her to choose to sacrifice it felt completely right to me, and it made a lot of sense. So yeah, she manages to create the keys again. She is just fucked up, but they still use the keys to turn on the fountain. And then what should happen? But with the travelers appears a fucking librarian who puts the siphon onto the magic and incapacitates everybody yet again with Dean Fogg's blessing. And we see magic be funneled directly to the library, who now gets complete control over where that magic is going and who gets how much of it. Which I, to be fair, really, really like the idea of the library wanting to manage magic. I think this makes a ton of sense. It's just the way that this all happened that I don't like. I don't feel like they just, again, rush so much here. And I don't understand Dean Fogg's arrangement with the library exactly. I guess because it seems like later on he is not happy with the way things are being handled, and he feels like, he made a deal that he thought was going to go this way and it didn't. I really want to know more about how he thought this was going to work, because it doesn't feel like he had any guarantees from them in one way or the other. It's just a weird, I don't really understand this. So yeah, they all are, on their knees being forced to open their mouths. And I was like, what is happening here? And they're gasping for air. And meanwhile, Dean Fogg says, Irene, we had a deal. And she shoves her magic outward. I'm not sure what it was that she did, but the dean comes up to them and holds out the bottle. And I guess he makes each of them drink some. I don't know what it was she was doing that he says we had a deal if she was going to kill them, and her shoving her magic out was meant to be that she like let it go and decided not to kill them at the last second. I think that's what that was. But regardless, yeah, he holds this bottle out, and then we like jump ahead to break bills, and we have the professor back again, and she is apparently teaching again. I can't remember her name, but she is in the middle of showing them how to do something when the magic shorts out again and it collapses, what the demonstration that she is trying to do. And she gives Dean Fogg, who is hovering in the doorway, a real irritated look. And we cut to a conversation between just the two of them where she's like, dude, I can't teach anything like this. I can't even assign homework. It's totally inadequate, even just for a class where I'm the only one doing it. This is ridiculous. And then we cut to the librarian, the head librarian, saying, I'm afraid we can't revisit your resupply until next quarter. And he says, I've spoken to the board. North American, 4th District, Calgary enrollment hasn't bounced back the way that we have. They're barely using 2/3 of their allotment, and they've offered it to us. And she is trying to bureaucramancy her way out of helping him, because for some reason, it really seems like she just does not want to give him the satisfaction or help him specifically. I can't tell if this is just her being like a bureaucrat in the way that they seem to be able to gleefully look on while somebody drowns in paperwork, or if this is really genuinely a personal thing that she like is irritated with him and trying to fuck him up. But this like scene where Dean Fogg is like fighting her in order to get the supply, in the context of her and him having had some sort of arrangement, is confusing to me. And he says, I have one more request. And she says, my answer hasn't changed. She made a deal with us, then broke it. Unlike the others, she belongs to the library. And we see that Alice is still there, fulfilling an obligation after breaking her deal. And she tells Dean Fogg that that thing is still out there and that she knows that everybody is in danger and nobody believes her that this thing is still there. Which, yeah, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. The McAllisters can't find them, and if they try, the library's retribution will be swift. Dude, you know she's not fucking talking about the McAllisters, guy. What are you doing? I don't understand why you aren't hearing her. It like she saw it. It's a thing that can jump by. What are you talking about? Christ's sake. And she says if they don't have magic, they can't protect themselves. And he says, hypothetically, let's say this thing gets loose, why would it go after them? And she says it's seen them. If it knows magic is back, it's going to know they're magicians, even if they don't. And then we cut to each of our beloved characters in life not living a magician's life, not knowing who they are. We have Margot, first of all, looking amazing with bangs, BT dubs. I love this look. Getting into an Uber that is being driven by Josh. He calls her Janet, introduces himself as Isaac. For a moment, I thought that they were each undercover, but it becomes really clear really quickly that they don't know each other. There's a moment of thinking that they like might recognize each other, but then it goes. We see Julia, and she's like presenting some sort of like architectural, like, I don't know, you know, the plans for like building this building. Penny is a DJ in some club, and it's just like nobody knows who they are or remembers anything. Poor Katie is still using, and I hated that. I guess she's selling here. And then we have Quentin, who's in this bookstore wearing this little beanie and this like corduroy jacket and honestly, I really dug this whole look. He's got the corduroy jacket over this like this sweater vest. I was like here for all of this. And this dude comes up to him, and by this dude, I mean Eliot, but I'm calling him this dude because Quentin doesn't recognize him or know who he is. And so to him, it's just some dude who comes up, calls him Quentin. He's like, that is not my name. And Eliot says, will you play with me? And Quentin says, I'm sorry, I think you've got me mistaken for somebody else. And he walks away, and Eliot follows him, and Quentin is very aware Eliot is following him. And she tells, back in the cell that Alice is in, she tells Dean Fogg, it is just as much your fault as it is mine. Help me stop it. And we see Eliot, like, just very patiently pursuing Quentin as I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you. A cover of that song plays, which I found really, really funny. And he says, don't be scared. This is great. There's so much for us to do together. I can't wait to get started on all the people who really deserve our wrath. And he has this very childlike excitement about him. And he says, this is going to be so fun. I think anything is more fun when you do it with a friend. And then his eyes glow red, and that is the end of the episode. I am over time here, but I'm still going to keep talking for a second because there's some comments in the chat. Huggabug says, the Dean's deal I thought was not to punish them and let them live their lives if they give up their memory. But what? Hold on. Okay, so Yama says, what I don't understand is how they can regulate amount of magic to each space. Huggabug says, I assume the regulation is monitored through the faucets/fountains that were originally turned off. Margot's name in the books is Janet, which was a fun little Easter egg. Oh, that is fun. Yeah, I figured that too, that the regulation is just like the fountain. It's like a genuine seeming like plumbing system. And they like turn on and off fucking faucets, like in a very literal way. As far as Huggabug saying, I thought the deal was not to punish them. I guess that's like the only alternative to killing them, right? They bring back magic by all turning the keys, and they are required in order to turn magic back on. But the deal is that they don't get killed because nobody can know that this is how this happened, or I guess they can't be left alive and having magic because they will try and exact retribution on the library, I guess. So yeah, okay, I get that. I really hate the fact that Dean Fogg did not try to defend them from the library swooping in. I don't understand why he was willing to allow the library to do this without warning them that this was what was coming. I really wanted him to say something and get them on their guard so that they could have a defense prepared. And he didn't do that. And I don't understand why not. Why was he apparently okay with them handling it this way? Because he doesn't seem to like the library being in charge of the distribution of magic. So what's the deal there? What is he getting out of this? I don't know. So what I had started to say at the beginning of the episode and then stopped myself, I just wanted to mention this reveal that Eliot's the one inhabited by this thing. It's kind of interesting because we see Ona, that's her name, right? And she's inhabited by it. And somehow it jumps from her to Eliot at a point that I don't remember, or maybe we're not supposed to know when this happened. And evidently, whether or not Eliot had his memory wiped by this potion does not influence this thing taking his body at all. Like, that's just still happening. It's still aware of itself. I knew this was coming because of the fucking image for season 4. And this is something that can't really be helped. The image for season 4 is Eliot with his like red possessed eyes looking real creepy and doing magic. So I knew magic was somehow going to be brought back, or he would have possession of it, and possession would also be happening to him. And it's a shame that they use such spoilery imagery for season 4. I'm not really sure why they decided to go with that, because it's just everywhere. It was on the images for the events for this show, but also it was just like, you know, when it was being advertised, the next season coming up, I was getting like pop-up ads for the Magicians next season. And that was like, it was just unavoidable. So unfortunately, the fact that Eliot is possessed and the thing has gotten out, I knew was going to happen. There's so much of this episode that I did not see coming that I don't feel like it really affected my enjoyment in the end, you know? But we'll see. We'll see what this looks like. Huggabug says, I think he realizes he is just one man and can only do so much. He also had to protect the school and ensure the library will still give them magic when it returned. Weak. You know, I don't know. I think that he could have done more and he chose not to do more. And either there's a real specific reason for that, or he was just being like passive in the way that he tends to be, which I find deeply irritating. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. I am 10 minutes over. I really need to go. But thank you guys very much for hanging out with me. We will see about season 4 and its start. I'm frustrated by this finale, but I'm also interested in seeing everybody, you know, whenever there's like, oh, I don't know who I am. I always find that sort of interesting, but it can be frustrating when it's just the one person. I like that it's everybody doesn't remember. I'll be very excited to watch the process of them either remembering or coming into their own as new people who have magic and how they deal with it now. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, I will see you I'm not sure how long, probably the end of this week, actually, with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.